The U.S. and Cuba continue their quest to make history and ease more than 50 years of tension.
The U.S. now reopening its embassy in Havana, and Cuba is reopening its embassy right here in the district. ABC's Karen Travers reports.
An historic announcement at the White House.
The United States has agreed to formally reestablish diplomatic relations with the Republic of Cuba and reopen embassies in our respective countries.
It's been more than 54 years since the U.S. has had a diplomatic presence in Cuba. The Cuban government announced it will open its embassy in Washington on July 20th. The U.S. is expected to do the same in Havana in late July. John Kerry will travel to Cuba for the formal reopening, the first visit there by a U.S. Secretary of State since 1945.
A year ago, it might have seemed impossible that the United States would once again be raising our flag, the Stars and Stripes, over an embassy in Havana. This is what change looks like.
There has been 7 months of negotiations between the U.S. and Cuba. In April, an historic sit-down in Panama between President Obama and Cuban leader Raul Castro. And in May, the U.S. removed Cuba from its list of countries that support terrorism. But there are sticking points, the major one for the U.S. being securing commitments that American staff can move freely throughout Cuba.
We'll talk about all those details later.
Florida Senator and Republican presidential candidate Marco Rubio's parents emigrated from Cuba. He's been one of the most vocal critics of the White House, saying it's looked the other way when it comes to the Castro regime's repressive rule.
Nobody expects Cuba to be transformed overnight.
Some congressional opponents have threatened to complicate any White House effort to nominate an ambassador to Cuba. A senior administration official says they may not even do it. Reporting from Northwest, Karen Travers, ABC 7 News.